countdown to the last comic shop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, it is now time for the end of the world! It's the Last Comic Shop podcast.
That's right, it is time, but time is not absolute. So
No, it's not that series yet. You get that series and
did you not see that shows up already? They already are. Oh, it's so great. Anyways, we are talking comic books and inviting everybody into this giant comic book tent.
That's right. And we're keeping the lights on for the oldies and the moldies that might actually know what we're talking about.
And since it's one of J.A. Scott's favorite books, I was thinking one of J.A. Scott's favorite bands, straight out of York County, PA, live. And to love a god is to fear the flame and to burn.
Ethan, don't forget about the song where they talk about when the placenta hits the floor and somebody comes and kicks it, punches it with an uppercut.
But he was throwing it back. I'm the host with most, Eddie Larson. That was Ethan Larson throwing it back. Everybody loves throwing copper. J.A. Scott's been throwing copper for years.
For some unknown reason, has 100 million listens on Spotify.
I don't know. Chad, do you like throwing copper?
Not really. You know what's great is Peter Gabriel. Sledgehammers.
We're not going down.
No. Let's get back off the tangent. We are covering Solar Man of the Atom from Valiant Comics way back in the 90s. The first 10 issues. It also includes, is it called issue 0?
Put it on a trade that they called Alpha and Omega and also Solar Man of the Atom issue 0, but it was a removable. I think it was you were meant to take it out of the book. I don't think many people did. That for the first 10 issues was like 3 or 4 pages with what ended up being the largest comic book panel in the world.
That's right. Where you would take out each 2-page spread and you would line them up in a certain way so that you could see this huge comic book panel.
I mean, for a gimmick, it was pretty cool. And the whole idea is that the first 10 issues is telling the normal Solar story, but then you get this origin story to boot, which actually all takes place before issue 1.
J.A., since you are a Valiant file, I have to ask you, did you buy like separate copies of Solar Man of the Atom so that you could take out all the individual panels and assemble them as a transformer in your room?
No.
Shrine to Valiant.
No. But if you bought the trade, it came with the fold-out poster that was the same size. So if you're looking on the eBays to find this trade, find one that has the poster intact, because then you'll get the panel in the poster.
Oh, very cool. Well, speaking of gimmicks on this week's show, we have a gimmick every single week during our opening segment. It's game time. It's time to play some sort of game that may or may not really be related to the book that we're covering. In this case, it really isn't. Like, these are all Marvel DC characters. We're talking Valiant today. But it's now time for another round of The Lantern Line. Now, for those folks that may not listened to our previous episode of The Last Comic Shop, Ethan, what is the Lantern Line? Can you explain it to us?
So the concept of the Lantern Line is similar to what's in either football or baseball or other sports. Basically, the line of delineation between a good superhero, somebody that can hold their own book, and somebody that may not be able to hold their own book together. And I use this based, the JLA, the Magnificent Seven. I looked at all the characters. Obviously Superman can hold his own book, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash. You go down the line, you get to Green Lantern. You're like, Green Lantern's a little bit iffy. And then Martian Manhunter, unfortunately, he's below
Metamorpho.
Yes, exactly. So on and so forth.
Right. This is the line of demarcation. And we're not going to say that these people didn't have their own books in the past.
No, not at all.
It's that, should they have?
Right.
Is that one of the reasons why some of their books tanked? Is because it's like making fetch happen. Sooner or later, you just got to let it go. But yeah, we're going to each throw out one character, and we're going to basically vote on whether they're above or below the lantern line. And we're going to go ahead and start off with Chad Smith. So, Chad, who do you have to throw out to the group?
All right, I'm going to start. I'm going to go DC. And man, oh day, I'm still thinking about that Superman movie. And, boy, there was that sexy Jimmy Olsen. There was that Perry White, who just had command of the office. But honestly, the most interesting character for me in the Superman universe, Lois Lane. Like, here's someone completely brave, completely empowered, totally stupid as far as her own personal safety is concerned. She's not a damsel in distress, but she damn sure makes sure she's in distress quite a bit by putting herself in some precarious situations. But I think you could take Lois Lane and put her in a book and steal some folks from the Superman Daily Planet. And what about Lois's own friends? Does she have friends outside of work? Have we ever seen a Lois friend from outside of work?
That's true. Well, I will say this, that one of the most infamous comic book runs of all time, at least in my opinion, is what I think, was it called Superman's Girlfriend, Lois Lane? Something like that. It was very similar to Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen. It was released in the 60s, and it has become notorious, in my opinion, for the types of covers that they put up now, showing, like, I don't know, Lois Lane getting spanked or being put into a machine that then changes her race. And they thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, like, it was not the most progressive of comics.
It was downright cringeworthy at points. And so I have to say that just based on the fact that that series exists, like, I think that she's below the lantern line. They're never going to give her another series. And rightfully so. She's a supporting character in Superman's book. And I think that's a perfectly fine place for her.
To use the baseball analogy, since this is sort of Lantern line, Mendoza line type thing, she has no power. She barely hits for average, gets on base by walking, and can't steal second. So she's not a 5-tool player by any means. Definitely below.
But I mean, if you're gonna say
Lois Lane has a power. Lois Lane has a power. It's the power of the press. It's the power of investigative journalism.
So to take that and to combine it with my analogy, then she's a throwback. She's like playing baseball in the 30s, legging out infield choppers.
Oh, you're going to take so many letters.
I'm going to take the counterpoint. Because I go back to our first segment that we had. Go back and listen to the episode. It's our 250th episode. It's a fantastic episode. You should listen to it. Because I threw out Robin. Andrew makes the argument Robin is in the Fab Four of all DC characters, which is like one of the most obnoxiously untrue statements that has ever been uttered.
What are you talking about?
In the 5 years of the last comic shop.
You're the worst.
Because Lois Lane is more well known than Robin. She's in the rarefied air of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman.
I bet more people know her alter ego than they do Wonder Woman's.
Her alter ego is Lois Lane.
That's right. It's real easy. What's Wonder Woman's? You had to think about it.
You can't have Superman without Lois Lane. I'm sorry. Like, it just doesn't. You'd have to have Lois Lane with Superman. I mean, that's
right. You would have to have them in the same book, which is why
she gets top billing in the show. The Adventures of Lois and Clark.
Can you imagine that TV show where they have Lois Lane, but they can't use Superman for like contractual rights issues? It'd be like Gotham. It's like, yeah, this is all about Batman, but Batman never shows up. Boring.
Listen,
that's right.
They made a show about the butler.
Boring. People don't go to baseball games to watch baseball players leg out infield choppers. They want to see home runs.
That's my that, and she is extremely important to the Superman book, but she could not carry her own book by herself.
This is so regressive. Lois saved Superman. She saved Metropolis in that movie. She's been played by Terry Hatcher, Rachel Brosnahan. Great reporter.
Now that I'm thinking about this, I really don't want to read a Lois Lane book.
That's 3 votes. We're moving on. Lois below that lantern line. Let's move on because I have a Marvel character to throw out. Let's move to the other side of the aisle. So my Marvel character is somebody that has had his own books in the past, actually several series is worth, but I still believe he is below. So I'm making the case that from the get-go, he is below the lantern line. And that is Namor, the Submariner. Submariner is a great character among the Marvel tapestry, but really, can he have his own book? Should he have his own book? Especially nowadays, would anybody give a shit about Namor? They had to put him in a Black Panther movie in order for anybody to care. I get it. He's sexy. Every woman in the Marvel Universe loves him. But can he cover his own book? J.A.
No. To be honest. I used to, you'd see that issue 1 John Byrne cover from the 90s everywhere. But the only time that he's interesting is when he's stealing Sue Storm away from Reed Richards. That's the only time that it makes any sense. The man permanently looks like he just came out of the pool.
I mean, I guess my counterpoint is like, if Aquaman can hold a book, can't Namor?
Aquaman can talk to fish. Namor can't talk to fish. Please, he doesn't have those fish powers. I think it's highly suspect that Aquaman could cover his own book. But Chad, are you putting him above or below?
I bought a Namor book once for when Jay Lee was drawing it. It looked real cool. It was Hobo Namor, and then he had the hair, and he looked like Jason Momoa 30 years before Jason Momoa was Momoa and about. So, no, I don't think you can carry a book for long, though.
All right. Namor is solidly below the lantern line. He's good in ensemble book. Like, you put him on the Avengers, Defenders, you put him in the Fantastic Four book as a supporting character, sometimes antagonist. Great. Can't cover his own book anymore. Moving on to J.A., he's got our next DC book. So what do you have here for us?
Well, he was one of the stars of the recent Superman movie, and I wanted to go with super sexy Jimmy Olsen, but I figured that was a little bit too close to the Lois Lane discussion. So instead, we're going to go the other way. We're going to go with Mr. Terrific.
Oh, that's a great one. I actually thought that's where Chad was going, because Andrew is convinced he can carry his own movie, which was, I think, probably one step below the Robin is in the Fab Four of all the DC characters. As one of the most ridiculous things that have ever been said in this.
Guys, come to my rescue. Fans out there, is he not one of the most popular and well-known characters in the DC universe? I would say yes, but I agree. I loved the guy that played Mr. Terrific in the movie. I think he had a lot of charisma. I would like, maybe not his own movie, but if you made the Justice Gang movie and put him center stage as like the leader of that group, I think people would.
No, Andy. Let the record show that you were convinced in that movie review that he could carry his own movie. You said it at least 3 or 4 times that said, be the next Iron Man of the new DCU. Is that or is that not what you said?
I did. And I have enjoyed the Mr. Terrific Year 1 series that DC is currently putting out. So he's carrying his own book for me. Let's go to Chad. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I actually agree with Andy. I think Mr. Terrific would be a great breakout movie star. I would see a Mr. Terrific movie, or The Terrifics, or the Justice Gang featuring Mr. Terrific. I think he could out Mr. Fantastic, because I'm still mad at that movie for reasons I don't understand.
I unfortunately have to go back to what J.A. said on the movie review, which you can go and listen to too. That episode is also evergreen as well. He said basically that he didn't care about any of the ancillary characters. He was just waiting for the big 3 to show up. And I think I'm in the same camp. Like, I don't really care about the other people that were in the Superman movie. Like, I don't want to see them. Like, Mr. Terrific was cool for a movie, but I'm like, I don't really want to read a book about Mr. Terrific. I just want to read a book about Superman.
That's the problem with DC in general, is when you think about DC books, you think about Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, maybe Flash or Green Lantern, hence the whole purpose of this line. But some of the best DC books, or when they take those C-list or D-list characters and just let people run with them and do what they want. And so that's how you get the Mr. Miracle Tom King series. That's how you get things like Strange Adventures, which had Mr. Terrific, that people were trying to convince me was really good, even though I wasn't a big fan. But let somebody like James Gunn pick a character like Mr. Terrific and play with him, and because he doesn't have all the backstory of a Batman. He doesn't have all the baggage of a Superman. He doesn't have all the expectation. It was just he was in one really cool scene with that or the Noah and the Whale song behind him, which that was real catchy. I like that song.
All right. Let's put it to JA for the final. So we've got 2 for, 1 against.
I mean, to continue my baseball analogy, so if Lois Lane is like the consummate singles, low power, no hitter, Mr. Terrific, all he does is hit doubles. They're not home runs, but he's in scoring position every single time. So I'm thinking, yes, he could carry his own book, and to Chad's point, it would be interesting because he's not carrying all the baggage of the big three.
Well, let's finish it off here with Ethan's pick. Now, again, Ethan before the show told me this might be the most contentious one. Yeah. Mike Start Fights. It's a Marvel pick, and who do you got for us?
And I will have to admit, it is a fringe Marvel pick because it does go into another subgenre of media out there. I am going to nominate Luke Skywalker. And before you guys start joking and like ridicule me out of the place, let me explain. They basically nuked all of his extended universe novel books. They're all out of canon now. They made him a bitch in New Hope. And Disney has done nothing with the dude other than have him show up in like 2-minute cameo in Mandalorian, which was pretty dope. But they have done nothing with Luke Skywalker. They've done everything with every other ancillary character. Obi-Wan had his own show. The random drone from the Phantom Menace had his own show, and every person in the Star Wars universe has had their own show except for Luke.
I mean, the counter argument to that is, why does he need his own show when he got 3 movies?
Who's going to tell Ethan that all the good Star Wars movies or the Luke Skywalker story? He doesn't need a show. He had the 3 best Star Wars movies.
The story's about Anakin. The whole story is about Anakin.
Luke Skywalker isn't even the best
character in his
own retcon that after
you
the fact.
retconning, yeah.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
The original one, he's the protagonist. He's the one you feel for.
This is the hero's journey. He's the hero in the hero's journey.
He leaves the
but literally the whole story is about Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker.
He's way above the line because it's his story.
I would say he used to be. But now, like, what are they doing with them? They're not doing anything.
And it is difficult because I will say that, like, everybody that I've ever known throughout my life, when I've said that, like, Luke Skywalker was my childhood hero, they were always like, why did you pick him and not Han Solo? He's the cooler one. And I was just like, well, I like the guy with the light sword. That was my dude. Like, he was the guy. But I will say that there's a lot of really great Marvel comic books still that are now in canon with Luke Skywalker. It's again, you read one on the show, Ethan, with him fighting Darth Vader and riding through on like a speeder bike, and that Jason Aaron run with the John Cassidy art is really good. So he's above the lantern line, please.
Come on.
Come on, man.
To finish my baseball analogy, he's Joe DiMaggio. You know, when Joe DiMaggio retired and he showed up to any event, it was contractually obligated that they had to announce him as the greatest living Yankee. It didn't matter if he was old and there were new players playing, he was the greatest living Yankee.
But you're in the shadow of the Babe. Like, come on, man.
Greatest
doesn't matter.
Yankee.
Mark Hamill is also a wonderful ambassador and a great human being, and I like him in so many. Chad doesn't even like Star Wars, and
all Star Wars kind of sucks.
Don't hate the game, hate the player.
Next time I'm going to nominate Captain Kirk and really piss him off.
We've got more Last Comic Shop coming up right after these commercial breaks. Thank you for sticking around for actually a book review in a couple minutes, but that was Lantern Line. Stay tuned. Solar, Man of the Atom, first 10 issues, right after this.
Hello, Last Comic Shop podcast listeners. It is George from Shortbox Summary. The only thing I like more than reading comics is collecting comics, and the only thing I like more than collecting comics is taking care of the comics I've collected. And there is no better place to get bags and boards for your favorite, heck, even your least favorite comics than BCW Supplies. You can get all the bags, boards, boxes, frames, and more that you need to help keep your comic collection in its best shape. Listeners of this podcast can enjoy 10% off their order with code LCSPOD. That's LCSPOD for 10% off your entire order. Keep it tuned to the Last Comic Shop podcast for the best in comics talk and the best in comic book supply savings, courtesy of BCW.
Hi everyone, I'm Nerd Bummer.
And I'm Tactic, and we're two of the hosts of the Online Warriors podcast.
Our podcast started as a way for three best friends to keep in touch and discuss their nerdy hobbies like movies, gaming, tech, and more.
Since then, we've grown into a great community. Every Wednesday, we chat about the latest nerdy news before getting hands-on with our weekly nerdy adventures.
And don't forget our high-stakes trivia game. Come join the fun at onlinewarriorspodcast.com and every major podcast platform. And now, back to the show.
All right, we're back with more of the Last Comic Shop, and it is now time for a Read Pile review. Yes, where it's time for another Year of JA pick. That's right, and we're going really into his private stash, like his sacred cows of comic books here. If you think of Silver Surfer, some of the X-Men, if you think of Conan Barbarian and his Mount Rushmore, Valiant, in all of the original Valiant titles from the early 90s, it's up there.
Solar is where it all began. I mean, not just with my love of the Valiant universe, it's where the Valiant universe began. Now, yeah. Magnus the Robot Fighter actually came out before Solar, but Solar set the table for the entire universe.
So this is Solar, Man of the Atom, the first 10 issues, including the Alpha and Omega story that, as we mentioned before, was included in every single one of these issues. And there was a ton of people that worked on this series, and we're going to get all those folks from Chad Smith. So Chad, who worked on this?
They are written by Jim Shooter, with art by Don Perlin, Bob Layton, Barry Windsor Smith, Nob Rowe, which is a bunch of dudes and ladies, Ernie Colon, Ian Aiken, Stan Drake, James Brock, Gonzalo Mayo, Bethany Jenks, Mike Cavallero, The Toasters, Tom Ryder, Catherine Bollinger, Jorge Gonzalez, and letters by folks like Jade Boyd, B.K. Joyce, Ken Lopez, and Audra Verde.
Made my day. I don't know how the 10-cent synopsis would be any better than that, but I think in addition to the 10-cent synopsis, Ethan had a couple questions about the Valiant universe overall.
Yes, I just wondered like where Valiant kind of came from, what their deal was. Are they similar to Image? Are they not similar to Image? They were like an also ran in the 90s, right? You had Marvel, you had DC, then you had Image popping up, and then Valiant was like a number 4, but they were like, I don't want to degrade Valiant in their effort, but they were the distant number 4, and then they kind of...
Oh, no, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry.
Well, actually, you see, if you look at the value of the comics at the time, so, I mean, it was an independent comic book started by Jim Shooter after he got axed from Marvel. He created the Valiant universe, and their big thing kicking off was they got the rights to a bunch of old Gold Key comic book characters, Magnus Robot Fighter, Dr. Solar, Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, and they used them to start building out this universe. And what made it different to the Image books was, if Image was sort of artist-led at that time, I would say Valiant was very much writer-led. So the house style was very minimalist in terms of colors and in terms of what the characters, how they were drawn. the universe was a completely integrated, shared universe where you had a lot of crossover. And the whole thing was building up to this Unity crossover saga that we're going to cover next year. Solar, Man of the Atom, these first 10 issues set the table, as I said, for everything that was to come in the Valiant universe. So what happens in Solar, first 10 issues? Here's your 10-cent synopsis. Well, you have this 10-part origin story called Alpha and Omega, which is how Solar came to be. Phil Selensky is a nuclear physicist, and he's building a nuclear fusion reactor that goes crazy and turns Chernobyl, and he dives in to try to stop it, and he ends up becoming this superhuman being that can control all manner of energy. He becomes God, and he has a God complex, and he ends up dying, creates a black hole that destroys the Earth, but he falls through into what is the Valiant universe, and that's where we start on issue 1 of the main story in a different timeline. The second death story arc is this Solar from a different time dealing with the fact that he's killed an entire universe. And Solar, Man of the Atom, the actual comic book character from the Gold Key, splits out of his brain. It's sort of like he's bipolar, essentially. He's fighting with himself. He then reabsorbs the Solar Man of the Atom. He absorbs the Phil Selensky of this time. He prevents the accident from happening, and he is now all in one. In the second story arc, we get introduced to another one of the major antagonists of the entire Valiant universe, and that's the spider aliens. And these are these alien creatures that come to Earth and put on human skins. Point is that they love trees, and they're botanists at heart, and the humans are infections on the trees, so they're trying to kill everyone. 10-issue arc ends on a bit of a cliffhanger because you find out that there is not just one person with solar or massive energy powers. In fact, there is two. Phil Selensky wasn't the only person in the containment chamber when this nuclear reactor is going crazy. One of the other scientists, Dr. Erica Pierce, she also became an energy being, but she suppressed it. And so she thought she was pregnant. She gave birth to an energy baby that went ape crazy and started eating and killing everything. And then Solar had to kill the baby or let the baby die.
Oh, wow.
And then Erica Pierce, understandably angry about this. But then she gets up getting killed anyways by a second Erica Pierce in the beginning of Unity. Ugh. That is a 15 to 20 cent synopsis. I don't think it made a lot of sense. Not unlike a Christopher Nolan movie where it's sort of out of place and you're jumping back and forth in time.
J.A. just mentioned that it doesn't make a lot of sense. It actually kind of sort of, because at the end of the day, the story of Solar Man of the Atom is about a guy who gets godlike powers. And later it finds out that actually what he built was a wish fulfillment machine. And his wish was to become a superhero. And so when he destroys the original universe he was in, he recreates this new one with all superheroes, in which he is the key member of that superhero group. So when you have superheroes, what do you need? You need super bad guys. So he creates those in like Toyo Harada and the rest of the Harbingers. He creates spider aliens, which are the greatest of all antagonists for a universe, right? Because they're all nameless. There's millions of them. Solar can just go around and kill them all, and you get the Exo Man of War armor that comes out of that. And by the end of it, you get the Eternal Warrior, which is one of my favorites. It's all part of like Jim Shooter doing what he likes to do, which is, if you remember from our Secret Wars show, he likes to tell stories about really, really super powerful people that end up having big problems. He did it with this. I think he did it with Starbrand when he did the new universe over at Marvel. Dr. Doom having the powers. I think it all makes sense. And so I was really happy to go back and reread this.
It's Marvel's editor-in-chief talking about people that have too much power. And I don't know how to describe it. It seemed very talky. It was a little bit confusing. And what ended up being like legit multiversal, like, oh, this is how you should do it. But at the time, I'm like, all right, all these characters look the same, and I don't know who's who. And is this doctor guy a good guy? I still don't know. Like, is he the good guy? Is it the comic booky character that he read as the good guy, and that's a separate good guy, and he's not a good guy, but maybe he's a good guy, but that lady's not a good guy. And then she's not. By the time we got to the second arc, I think I had kind of settled in and was enjoying the soap opera elements of this. But it was a lot of office drama, I felt like, more so than I was anticipating with a story about this guy that could create whole realities. You want to give it a little bit of grace because this was early on in a young publisher. So the art inconsistencies, like, they weren't all that bad. Even though there were multiple artists, you heard me read off the list at the beginning of the show here, there was a consistency of the art style throughout the book. It just wasn't very good or exciting.
It was very much in that Marvel house style. Like, I don't think they ventured outside of that. Like, I almost felt like I was reading like a Marvel book out of the, 70s or 80s. And if I could actually touch on this, granted, I don't think I've ever read a Jim Shooter book other than this. I feel like he was aping Chris Claremont. Like, I really felt like he was at times like had the same voice as Chris Claremont. Like, I almost like felt like I was reading an X-Men from like back in the, the heyday of Dark Phoenix saga, but not as good.
Yeah, the melodrama was there with the Gale and the other lady, Fat Gale. What's her name?
Trying to plant smooches. Where did she go? That was actually an interesting.
She ended up with Earl, and then she was like, "All right, I'm done."
Why did they get rid of that though? That was good. Like, I would have. That was much more interesting.
Well, I don't know why she was throwing herself at Solar. Like,
well, like, I could get all that stuff, but it's like he said she just disappeared at one point, and so that was confusing. And then the copy that I read had and I think it was how it was originally presented, the Alpha and Omega stories, like, interspersed within the regular storyline.
Yep.
And like, oh, this is where this second story starts and stops would be the big thing.
Well, no, you had that white sort of indication page. I mean, it was a section that was meant, you could pull it out if you wanted. So it was quite obvious when you were done with that insert.
Okay.
Plus the art shifted too. Like, the art style shifted.
Oh yeah, it shifted to really good art from Barry Windsor Smith.
Right.
Yeah. But, there's got to be a reason they didn't just make this its own issue at the end or at the beginning or whatever. Like, there's got to be something in these stories that's going to reflect on the other story that I'm reading. But if there was, I didn't catch it. I was just kind of annoyed that this was like in the middle all the time. And like, I'd be reading the A story and then, here's 3 or 4, however many pages of the B story. And did the B story end? I think it ended. No, it didn't. Nope. Okay, now it ended. And now we're back to the A story. And so it just added an extra layer of confusion for me.
I was just going to say, what I did like about the B story was like, and I was not necessarily surprised, I think is the word, is that J.A. said that basically you could take all these out and make them their own contained issue. But a lot of the times, the B story ended on a similar note to what the A story was hinting at. And I really liked that narrative usage. I think hinted at what was going to come next in the story. And I was like, okay, this is actually really well done.
Yeah, no, I agree. There was an issue, I think maybe it was issue 9 with the energy baby thing. And they were setting it up in like the B story that Erica was burgeoning with her own powers at that point and was ready to like make a move to eliminate Phil. And that was, I think, my favorite part of that entire Alpha and Omega story was the interplay between Phil and Erica throughout all of the issues. They had the most interesting chemistry, the most interesting relationship. There's that one issue, one of my favorite ones, where Phil's like, to his true love, quote unquote, Gail, I would like to show you what being an energy being is all about. And she's like, I don't want any part of this. And Erica's like, I'll do it.
Yeah, so it's like, other girl. Come on.
Sure, why not? Second choice, fine. I know that you wanted to sleep with me earlier on in the series, but like, fine, whatever.
You know who could have handled that is Fat Gale. Fat Gale could have handled that crisis of Infinity Earth.
But what's so great about Erica wanting to learn is she had the power already. Because she's in both universes, she was also in the containment chamber with Phil.
Okay.
And plus the fact that, like, again, we get that really great Barry Windsor Smith art. And I agree with Chad that it was really hard for me to go from like the rest of the issue and then have this B story and then go back, because the rest of the issue didn't have Barry Windsor Smith art. And I was just like, well, where's that? Because some of that art in there has that classic Barry Windsor Smith body horror kind of stuff, like you would gotten like what we just read in Weapon X.
When he gets too hot and Gale just starts melting away.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or he takes Erica into that energy dimension and she can't handle it and she turns into that skeleton zombie thing. Too horrible, horror. And then I'm like, how many times can you say horror, Erica?
Yeah,
like, I get it. Like,
I'm just glad that somebody brought up the baby, because for me, the whole Solar Man of the Atom book series jumped the shark with the baby. Like, I was just like, as soon as the baby was introduced, I'm like, all right, this is like, what am I reading now? Like, this is like, okay.
For context, for listeners, this is Erica gets pregnant, but the baby is pure energy. So she doesn't look like she's pregnant, but then she can pop this baby out of her womb and look at it. It's a fetus inside an amniotic sac, but it's all made of energy. And then it gets born, and then it grows into a toddler with all this power. Then they have to fight it, and you get these panels of Solar Man of the Atom punching a toddler that's colored like the sun.
Not only does it like hyper uncomfortable, they thought this was a good idea, punching a baby, or it's time for this. Let's put this to bed. Like, the alien fight, really cool. The man versus himself, really cool. The baby, like, if this was Gale, if Gale had the baby, yes.
No, but the whole point is that it's not some random chick. It ended up being the antagonist of the entire Unity crossover saga. She's like one of the original big bads.
But I don't know.
So the baby is a manifestation of where her mind is at the time. And you'll see as you go into Unity Saga, she's got some issues. Erica Pierce has a lot of issues. What she does to her son, or supposed son, in Albert. Woo! Anyways, I can see where you're going. I disagree that the baby made no sense. I think thematically it makes a lot of sense in sort of this story arc that is Erica.
I didn't care about Erica as a character. Maybe that was my biggest problem. I didn't think that she had the agency that you said that she deserves. I didn't pick that up. I go back to the same set. If you would have gave the same power set to Gale, and Gale was the one who like went in with Dr. Solar and saw all the manifestations of his psyche, and she came out of it completely traumatized, and then she caused all this crazy crap to happen, that would have been earned to me. I don't think that this Erica earned any of the gravitas that you're giving her.
Well, I would say, too, before we go too far, I did struggle a lot with the female characters because they all felt the same to me. Even with Erica, she didn't get a personality until like later on. There was something real sad about all the female characters, whether it was Gale, whether it was Fat Gale, whether it was dark-haired Gale, whichever Gale it was.
Yeah. Well, my favorite character was Edith, and she was only in like...
Which Gale was that?
The chick on the spaceship that got vaporized in space by the spider aliens. Like, I loved her.
Got me. Those vegetarian aliens, like, foop, out into space with you, and people are just
They were like, that was the coolest story arc. Like, if that would have also started the Unity,
here's my question. So he meets these spider aliens, then they kill the humans, and then he's like, that's it. This is war. And he goes to war with the spider aliens. And then that big issue where he fights the Exo Man of War armor. And then the next issue takes place a year. You jump a year. And he's been gone fighting spider aliens off panel. What did you think about that? Like the big climactic, I got almost everyone, but not all of them, and I chased them a long way. You don't see any of that. You just read about it.
Yeah.
Is that when he's hanging out with this naked psychiatrist? There's a lot of fat man butt.
Again,
I hear your judgment, Chad. I hear your judgment. You can't handle how real it is. I'm sorry that people aren't running around with bows without strings.
This was the same time. What was the fat guy in NYPD Blue was also shown as that.
Dennis Franz.
Yeah.
What was his name in the series?
Sipowicz or Sipkowitz.
Sipowicz.
Yeah, Sipowicz. Yeah.
Well,
but no, I did think the shower scenes were like, you couldn't have put that somewhere else, like on a bench.
I'm going to save my final thoughts about the spider aliens, about what I think about the women in this book, all from my rating section. We got to get to that section. We'll be right back with more of The Last Comic Shop right after this. We're going to rate Solar Man of the Atom, the first 10 issues, and we'll give you some recommendations. So stay tuned.
From Fantagraphics, The Santos Sisters Volume 1 hardcover collection. Compiling issues 1 to 5 of the hit indie comic book series. Join Amber and Alana, two ordinary girls with extraordinary powers, as they fight crime, date dumb guys, and try to stay sane in a world full of assassins, zombies, crazy ex-girlfriends, and more. A mix of Archie comics meet Love and Rockets, with a healthy dose of kick-ass action. Order your copy today.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Veterans Day honors all who have served, but do you know how it started? Originally named Armistice or Truce Day at the end of World War I in 1918, it became Veterans Day after veteran supporters pressured Congress in the 1950s to change the name. Learn more at va.gov and search Veterans Day.
All right, we're back with more of The Last Comic Shop, and it is now time for ratings, where we don't need to send you into an alternate universe to get a 1 out of 4 scale. J.A. Scott uses his vast powers to come up with one every single week. And what are you conjuring up for us this week, J.A.?
In the overlong overview, one of the greatest things about the Alpha and Omega story was this giant panel, which the panel itself is the world collapsing into a black hole because of the nuclear accident created by Phil Selinsky. So that's it. 1 out of 4 nuclear accidents.
I'm going to go first with, as I promised, as we were going to commercial break. And a lot of people brought up a lot of really great points. So I think that this was a great conversation. But first and foremost, Jim Shooter does know how to write godlike characters and make them interesting. He comes from that Marvel stock, to Ethan's point. He worked with folks like Chris Claremont. He injected melodrama and Marvel-esque kind of soap opera aspects into things like the Legion of Superheroes as early as the age of 14. He's made his bones with that. But I will say this, that I never felt, ever, that Jim Shooter was very good at writing women. And this is another perfect example of that. If you don't know, Jim Shooter was one of the awesome brains behind Avengers 200, which is a terrible issue of the Avengers where they basically take Ms. Marvel, Carol Danvers, and say, what if we just made her pregnant? Not on choice. Gave her a space baby. The same thing here. They just gave it to Erica Pierce, and they're like, give her a space baby. Shrugs? I don't know. And all the females in this, like the Gale character in this is just like your damsel in distress. Oh, Solar, you're so great. Erica has some interesting characterization at times, but then they just play it off that she's just crazy. And so it doesn't really go anywhere. And then again, if I had to take another panel where they just call on that one girl that genuinely shows some affection to a lost Solar and try to give him smooches and things, and it's just like, yeah, my mom's fat. I see how you would want to go out with this other person who's a total babe. It made me cringe a little bit. So none of the females were handled very good. But I like this series. I enjoyed this from beginning to end. I liked the Barry Windsor Smith story probably the best. I like the Spider Aliens probably the second best. I like the issue with Eternal Warrior, probably the third best, just because I like Eternal Warrior. but I can see how this would be exciting. The biggest problem, though, with all of these Valiants, and if you go back and listen to my Harbinger review, they didn't take enough time with anything. And I get it. They had a huge universe to build. They really did. And Jim Shooter saw, he was like, oh my gosh, I need to create another Marvel. They didn't understand that like Marvel took like 2 decades to build, not 2 years. And so like, to Ethan's point, it would have been cool to see the Spider Alien War, not just have it happen off panel because we got to get to Unity. Things just seemed a little rushed. And I wasn't a real big fan of the art. Sure, it was consistent, but it was kind of bland, especially compared even to things that were going on at Marvel and DC at the time. I'm going to give it a 3. I like it. I really did enjoy reading all of this, but it's rushed. There's too many ideas going on. Chad.
For all of my issues, there were moments in here, like when the spider aliens send the humans just out into space and they implode. Like, that was really powerful and like, whoa. And that's not a trick you can do multiple times and have it be effective, but the time he did, that worked for me. And sometimes when there was action and like, there were definitely parts of this book that I enjoyed, and some of the soap opera elements, you know, they were getting more and more fun as they expanded out the universe, and you know, you saw those connective tissues. And I definitely could see someone where if like I had chosen Team Valiant, I could see defending these books as really good because they're not bad. At the same time, I feel like this is one of those books that like I would be reading, and if I missed an issue, I would just stop reading it and not go back, right? It's like, as long as I'm there and I'm reading it, it would have my attention, but I don't know if I would be compelled to go back and like dig it out again. So I'm going to say 275. I really thought the art was rough with a lot of this, just in terms of like, there's a lot of people talking. It was real bland, and it was confusing. And like I said, I had trouble knowing when the B story stopped. Like, because it was so similar, I guess, to the A story, like they were too close. It didn't seem like one was highlighting themes. It was just like more of it. But like when I was done with issue 10, I was like, man, I wish we had issue 11. If I had issue 11, I would read that right now. But if you ask me in 2 days, I don't want to read it.
Chad, that can be arranged. I'll send you issue 11. You should read it because issue 11 is the unofficial kickoff to Unity, which we're going to be reading next year anyway. So,
well, you give it to him during the Unity time. Ethan, what do you got?
Maybe you should invite me back for the Unity episode. I'll already throw my hat in the ring. Why not? Read us some more Valiant. Let's go. Let's see what this number 4 Challenger brand's all about. I've always been a fan of Challenger brands personally. Everybody owned a PS2. I owned a Dreamcast. Everybody owned a Game Boy. I owned a Game Gear.
Everyone had an NES. You had the Sega Master System.
Yes, 100%, which was an awful... Sega Master System sucked. I'm sorry, y'all. And maybe that's where I'm at with Valiant. I don't want to say the Valiant sucked, but like Jim Shooter, for me, I just feel like he was aping a lot of his great writers from Marvel when creating the Solar brand. And I thought some of the stories were really good. I thought like the Man versus Himself, that's a great concept. Then it went to the war with the spider aliens, which was pretty cool. Like we were out in space and the Exo Manowar like kicked Solar's ass, which was like really good to see. You always want to see that hyper powered being get his ass kicked because that adds some gravitas to them. Then they had the baby and they went to Thailand, and I was like, okay, I think I've had enough of Solar. And to be honest with you, like I barely got through issue 10. So for that, I'm ranging between 2.5 and 2.75. I think I'm going to land in the 2.75 range. I think that was Chad was spot on with that grade. Just because it's worth reading. It's worth the time capsule of like, this is what a Challenger brand could be, but it doesn't reach its full potential of what I think it could ultimately be. And I think maybe if he would have handed off the reins after the Man versus Himself story and sent it to like maybe somebody that had these ideas more conceptualized, I could be wrong. I'm just a guy that has an opinion about Valiant.
You're not wrong. You're just not right. No. Yeah, obviously I love this. It sets the table for the entire Valiant universe. I think everyone's sort of comments on the art, while valid, that was more of a feature, not a bug. The whole point of the Valiant style was that it was sort of this more grounded, pedestrian look to the books, where it was meant to reflect more like normal life. That's a thematic choice that you could argue with, that you don't like. I want to see superheroes in their bombastic best. I mean, it's sort of the anti-image, if you will.
Boring is a tough sell.
Yes, I know.
So is the writer's comic book. I think it's much easier to sell huge boobs and like bombastic characters and like muscles coming out of your neck.
But the Alpha Omega story, there's a reason why they released it as a trade paperback standalone and then a hardback, which you can still find. You can find it on eBay and stuff. Obviously, it's out of print because Valiant lost the rights to Solar, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But there's a reason why it's there, because it's an incredible story and really great Barry Windsor Smith art. That first story arc is also a trade paperback, which you can find. It's the Second Death story arc. They never released a trade paperback for the second story arc with the spider aliens. I will point out, though, at this point, Exo Manowar was out. That was a lot of spider aliens. So they were already starting to... Valiant was very much, when you were in the moment at the time, you felt like you had to buy all the books to get the whole story. They did very well at promoting their other titles and tying them into each other so that from a money standpoint, from a capitalistic standpoint, it's great because you felt like, I can't just read the Solar book. I have to read the Magnus book, and I have to read this book, and I have to read that book to understand the whole universe, to understand what's going on. And to get to Unity, where they introduced 2 brand new books in Archer and Armstrong and Eternal Warrior, plus they had like the first couple of issues of Shadow Man. I think there was only like issue 3 or issue 4 where Unity started. They brought all these new books together to show how big and how combined the universe was, and then very Jim Shooter-esque, put them all in a pocket dimension where things could happen outside of the main universe and have it affect the main universe, but not worry about messing up anybody else's storylines in the future. So I do accept some of the criticism. I think the women were not as fleshed out. While I know what Erica goes on to become, I could see that you don't think she's earned it. I think she has. Issue 11 adds to her story even more. Some of it, I think, is played as a detective story where you don't know she's going to break bad. There are little notes here and there until she breaks bad. And when she breaks bad, she goes all the way, which you don't see until Unity. So some of this is, you're just setting it up. So it's a 3.5. I want to give it a 4 because I love it so much, but I understand that there are some thematic problems, especially some of those later issues that were sort of like bottle issues. The Thailand issue was a bottle issue. The baby issue, while is a bottle issue, it does add some notes to Erica, though the Erica who gets killed, not the Erica who's the big bad in the Unity saga. And we just read to issue 10 because it was sort of the culmination of Alpha and Omega. Could have read the first 11 issues. It's huge.
You know, I was the guy who said that I was the challenger brand. I think JA is certainly the challenger brand.
I'm Mr. Pibb all the way, baby. Mr. Pibb.
Why'd you gotta start making pop so soon, Mr. Pibb? You don't even have your degree. Come on.
All right. Well, let's get to recommendations real quick on this show. This is our part of every single episode where we give you other comic books in addition to Solar Man of the Atom, issues 1 through 10, which you can find at your local comic book shop if you're really looking. Some of the issues you may be able to find, no, not in buck bins. Well, I think I found one in a buck bin once. It was in pretty rough shape. People are hanging on to those, and rightfully so, because at the time, there weren't a lot of them. That's the whole problem with a lot of these early Valiant issues. There weren't a lot printed. They were actually fairly rare. Because there's no reprints, find those original trades or the original issues in addition to this other stuff. And we're going to start off with Chad. So, Chad, what do you got for us?
So as someone who's coming of his comic book age in the 90s, man, I was there. I was reading the Wizard magazines while they were plugging the Valiant, right alongside Image. And guess what has stuck around? That's right. Not Solar, not Magnus, not any of the Gales, Zephyr, Thumper, Bumper, Rumper, Chumper, Egg Beaters. No, it's Youngblood, baby. Youngblood is back.
So that would be what, like issue 5, issue 6?
There was a gap. You're right, between issue 5 and 6 for about 30 years. No, I'm kidding. But no, this is, by Rob Liefeld's count, it's issue 95 as number 1 of this new run, and he's hoping to take it all the way out to at least 100. But these are the books that are coming to comic shops now that were part of his direct-to-consumer campaigns, where he had released them with different covers earlier. And they are bangers, man. They are. Rob Liefeld has entered into his late 70s Jack Kirby era of his career, where it's just big splash pages and it doesn't need to make sense. It just needs to be awesome. And so I know I'm on an island with this one, but Youngblood is back and I couldn't be happier for it. So check that out at your local comic shop today.
Well, there you go. My recommendation this week talks about another godlike character that somebody tried to take and make a little bit more human, a little bit more relatable for audiences. And that is the original godlike superhero. That's the Man of Steel, Superman. Whether it's James Gunn's more recent version where they kind of depowered him a little bit, whether it was John Byrne in the 80s with the Man of Steel run where they, again, tried to depower Superman to make him more relatable and bring a little bit more drama into it. The original granddaddy of all of these was a series called Kryptonite No More. It was actually the Superman that kicked off the Bronze Age. So written by Denny O'Neil with art by Kurt Swan, and you can get it either in a hardback from the DC Comics Classic Library or more recently in a DC Finest trade paperback. This collects some issues of Superman where, again, Denny O'Neil got the reins to the Man of Steel and said, what if we started taking away some of his powers, not making him so invincible? And so you start off with a real interesting concept of getting rid of all of the kryptonite in the universe. We'd think that would make Superman even more powerful, but it actually makes him less. As a result of this whole kryptonite fiasco thing where they get rid of all of that, it pulls in this extra-dimensional being called Quorum, ends up making himself into a sand Superman and starts sucking away Superman's powers. So now he no longer can fly. He can now just jump really high. He starts not being as strong or bulletproof. And it makes for what at the time was an interesting take on Superman. After years and years and years of the Silver Age where he basically could just do anything. And you got a Superman that had foibles. You had Superman that had weaknesses. Eventually, they got rid of all of these ideas. It runs its course, and then they give Superman back his powers. But for a couple issues, maybe like 10, all collected in Kryptonite No More, interesting stuff from the Man of Steel. So if you like a little more depowered Superman, if you like, again, the John Byrne or what they're doing with the James Gunn character, check it out. Plus, it's got that awesome Breaking the Chains cover by Neil Adams, which is just really great Superman art. J.A.
Okay, I'm going to recommend another Valiant book, and this one you can get. It's for free on Comixology if you have a Comixology account. It is what I called Rye Zero. Just today I learned that I was saying it wrong the whole time. It's supposed to be Ray. The kanji after it is Ray. But I always pronounced it Rye because that's how they wrote it. Shanghai Rye. Anyways, Rye Zero is the story of the blood of heroes. The Bloodshot blood. It tells the story of the entire Valiant universe from the creation of Bloodshot all the way up to 4001 and the rise of the new Rye who has the Bloodshot blood of heroes, nanoknight blood in him. But it goes through everything. It tells you about the Harbinger War. It tells you about the coming back of the spider aliens and how they fight. It's essentially, in a single book, all of the history of Valiant laid out, which was so cool. I don't know if it pigeonholed them, but it did mean that certain storylines after this became issue. Master Dark and the whole Master Dark, the Harbinger War is all told. It was so cool how they were going to lay this out. This is Jim Shooter, David Lapham, Bob Layton, and John Hart are the ones who came up with this storyline. And then Jim Shooter got axed from Valiant, and not all of this happened. But at the time, right after Unity, this was sort of the great laying out foundation. It's akin to how Marvel did all those phase layouts when they would go to Comic-Con and show you what was coming next in the MCU. And then somebody gets axed, and suddenly all those logos start falling off the wall.
Like Kang Dynasty. You no longer get that movie. Well, Ethan, why don't you wrap us up with your recommendation?
Yeah, I'm going to be really quick because I had a recommendation, but then I went back and I remembered maybe Luke Skywalker is a little awesome. Okay, maybe I was just kind of internet trolling in this Lantern Line.
What do you mean,
segment.
kind of? Totally.
So I'm going to recommend the run that Andrew named earlier in the show. He had the Skywalker Strikes, Star Wars Volume 1, written by Jason Aaron, art by John Cassidy. I was on the review, believe it or not. Go back to our archives on May 3rd, 2022, right around May the 4th. So, but yeah, it's great. You have all the original Star Wars characters being badasses, and you got a very cool Luke Skywalker that I'm glad that Andy reminded me of. You know, at the end of the day, all I wanted to say is Disney's done him dirty. Like, let's get a Luke series. I mean, come on. Can we just get a freaking Luke series? Can we find out what happened to Kylo Ren and why he went off the deep end? Can we just find that out? Like, is that so hard, Disney? Please.
Can't agree more. I would love to have finally a series that happens. It tells all that stuff. But we're not in charge of this. The only thing we're in charge of is more episodes of The Last Comic Shop. And you can make sure that you're listening to all of them by rate, reviewing, and subscribing over at www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com. A couple more episodes here in November, and then we kick into December. We'll be having Ethan back to read Warlord with us. That's the next time you'll hear his voice. The omnibus written by Mike Grell, all about fighter pilot that ends up in the middle of the earth where it's like dinosaurs and monsters and all kinds of jazz. Plus, I think we've even got one of our patented tournaments lined up for the holiday season when Ethan comes back with the best play sets of all time. I don't know. This was something that Chad had to stop work and start researching.
That blew up my whole afternoon. I had plans and couldn't stop them. Next thing you know, I'm in Castle Grayskull and the Hall of Justice and the Slime Pits and which G.I. Joe set would qualify, and what was the Transformer guy, Jay? We're like, is that guy a play set? I don't know if he counts, but we should have a Transformer.
Omega Supreme!
Taco Supreme! It's a regular Omega, but with sour cream.
Tomatoes!
I told Andy, I said, I will not do the show unless the Pup Tower is one of the choices.
Oh, the
From
Pup
Paw
Tower!
Patrol.
From Paw Patrol!
Hell yeah, dude!
Oh, Lordy.
That is a classic toy. Come on, man.
So hopefully you'll come back for not only that episode, but all of the rest of the December and the rest of the shows for 2026.
And while we might be the Last Comic Shop podcast, we don't want to be the last comic shop. So we encourage you guys to get out there, get in those back issue bins and find those classic Valiant books. Things like Solar, Man of the Atom, or things like Rye. Also, look for some classic Superman and the Kryptonite No More with that badass Neil Adams cover. Look for Skywalker Strikes with the John Cassaday art. Finally doing good old Luke Skywalker some justice as far as Star Wars comics go. And then Youngblood, which is new and should be on your shelves if not already. All that and more waits for you at your local comic shop, so check them out today. And then you can circle back to our website, www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com, where you can find links to our social media output there on the Blue Skies and the YouTubes.
We want to smash that 5-star review. Get us on the top charts for all entertainment podcasts. I know you guys can do it. I have faith in our fans to get us to the top.
And you can find what sort of classic merch this week, J.A.?
So you can always get t-shirts coffee mugs, tote bags, hats with the Last Comic Shop podcast logo. This week, we have a special. If you buy one shirt, it splits into two.
Oh, BOGO. Did they ever explain why Dr. Solar had Cyclops glasses?
Now, that's, you would have to go back to the classic Gold Key, because Solar, Man of the Atom, that was the other, we never even talked about that. The whole point of why he had the costume was because he was being like the superhero from the comic book that he used to read in the 60s.
It is a classic looking costume, though. I won't lie.
Yeah.
It is an iconic look. Very simple, very streamlined, very elegant. I dig the Solar Man of the Atom look.
First two issues, I was waiting, and I was like, when is that guy that shows up like that Darkwing Duck villain, the Megavolt? When is Megavolt showing up? That's my
goggles?
Yeah, then he came, and I was like, yes, now this is the Solar that I was waiting for.
We're also waiting for folks to use our promo code, Ethan. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. You need bags, boards, other items to keep your comic books in. Please go to bcwsupplies.com, enter our promo code LCSPOD at checkout, save yourself 10%. And if you're a comic book store, if you're a trading card store, and you're listening to our show, you like what we're doing, make sure that when you're depending on all those bulk orders, you save your company a little bit of scratch on the top of it. LCSPOD will save you 10% on all your bulk orders when you order from BCW Supplies for your store for all those comic books and trading card and collectible supplies that you need. Again, bcwsupplies.com. Use our promo code LCSPOD to check out. Save yourself 10%.
And we will be back with more Last Comic Shop next week. Until then, I was the host of the most, Andy Larson. I was joined by Chad Smith and Jay Scott, as well as the wonderfully bombastic Ethan Larson. And we hope that you stay safe. Stay solar. That's right. Move over to one of those renewable energies. It's good for you. And remember that the cheapest meat is always deer balls, because you can find them under $1. You want to laugh. You want to laugh.
I wondered where you were going, man. You're like,
yeah.
A couple of deer balls.
Was a 2025 Black Angus production.